We're rolling. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Do Epic Shit Today podcast. I am super stoked to have Ash Foster with me today. Hello, Ash.
Hello.
Hello. So, Ash is an incredibly talented individual with 12 different health and fitness qualifications. And I'm actually, for those who are not watching, I'm reading off because there's this 12 is the actual number, and I want to make sure I get this right because this is
Thank
so
you.
impressive. Of course. So, Ash is a yoga teacher, advanced personal trainer, running coach, outdoor environment trainer, movement coach, life coach, obesity and diabetes weight management specialist, medical conditions trainer, circuit instructor, spin instructor. And then I think there's maybe a few more that I may have missed. But so I was actually talking to Ash before I hit record. I was going through kind of a moment where I was not prioritizing my recovery or not stretching. And so I actually found the amazing Ash Foster. I was doing some of your stretching videos and I was like, this guy needs to be on the podcast because this is crazy cool. And so for those who are not familiar with Ash, be sure to check out his YouTube channel, Run Better with Ash. It's packed with an impressive range of videos from pre and post run stretching to injury prevention strategies. And this is definitely a top tier resource for all runners. And I'll put all of the links in the bio of this podcast so people know where to find you.
Thank you.
Of course. Whew, that was a mouthful.
And it's all free as well. It's all free. That stuff on YouTube as well. So it's totally free. There's no excuses not to be doing it.
That too. And it honestly, if you do go to your YouTube channel, because I mean, that is truly where I found you. It was just so much incredible information of just pre-run, post-run, stretching for this type of, activity, prevention. It was this amazing library, and it's credits to you because that's so much effort that you've put in and the knowledge that you have.
Thank you. Yeah, that came really from working with my clients. How the channel actually started was working one-to-one in my studio with clients, and they would be like, "What shall I do after a run? What stretches can I do after a run, or what can I do to warm up?" And I said, "Do you know what? I will make you a video and put it on YouTube, and then you can follow along." And then that's how the channel started. It literally, I was making videos for my clients. Other people then started to watch my videos, and then it just started to grow and grow. And so some of the videos seem quite targeted, and it's because in my head I'm solving an issue of one of my clients' problems. So it's been quite, and then obviously other runners have that problem, and it's kind of some of the keywords match to what they're searching for, and it's been like, well, yeah, as runners we do tend to sort of suffer from the same kind of ailments that are quite common. So that was really how the channel started.
That's so organic. So I want to know where this started for you. How did you get into the, running world, personal training? Like, have sports always been a part, or running been a part of your life?
Yeah, and I could probably I've done talks about this before, so I could probably go on it. I've done hour-long talks about my background and my life and how I got to sort of where I am now. Trying to keep it short if I can. I was very sporty as a child, and I played sports. So there was two things that school didn't really. I wasn't very academic, so I couldn't really click with school. The only things that I really related to and sort of opened up my mind and I was excited about was running. It was sports, and was art and music. Three things really. So very kind of doing and creating. And then I started to play football, or soccer, as you guys call it in America. And I played soccer to quite a good standard. I played not just for my local team, but I represented my region. So I played representative football, and then I had sort of like tryouts for professional teams. Didn't have the right attitude at the time. So I was quite a very, very good soccer player when I was younger, up until the age of about 15, 16. And then there's kind of like this bump in the road when I was about 17. My parents split up. And I went from being a very kind of no drinking teenager, a very kind of clean living. My world was kind of like my family and sports. That was it. I was very kind of narrow minded about the world outside of it. My mum and dad had a bit of a messy breakup, and that just created like this vacuum of like emotion and like, "Oh, what's going on?" And at 17 years old, I was aware of quite a lot of things that was not very nice between my mum and dad, and I had to be there to support my mum, who was very at times she was almost suicidal, and that it left me with a lot of anger towards my dad. He'd sold the house that I was living in, that the family was living in. I had this again, this little sort of angst, and then I went on a bit of a period of sort of rebellion. Really, that's all I can describe it. I call them my rock star years, because from about 17 to about mid-20s, I joined a band. I started drinking a lot. I started taking social drugs. I partied a lot. I abused my mind and body for quite almost a decade, and then got to the point where sort of like my mid-20s, I was not in a great place mentally and physically. I was a little bit more overweight than I am now, 2 to 3 stone heavier. Maybe that's like 60 pound, I think, in America, maybe a little bit more. And I was eating KFC and McDonald's and junk food regularly, so it just wasn't a great place to be at in my mid-20s. Like I say, I was drinking a lot and partying, and I sort of had a quite dark period where I went into a period of depression. Tried to went to the doctors, went through therapy. They're trying to give me medication, and I went on medication. And the first 2 weeks of the medication, it just made me feel strange. It just made me feel really weird. And there was sort of like a light bulb moment when I was like, there must be something that I can do without relying on this pill just to do all of the work for me, that I can do to try and live better, just try and make the days nicer. And that's when I just started to walk. Went out the door and just went on 1 hour, 2 hour walks and felt better. Got outside, and then I changed it to running, and I'd go outside and I'd run for 10, 15 minutes, and it was almost like all of my childhood sports days came back to me and was like, this is what you need to be doing. And it was like just this wave of like realization of, and then pretty much since then, so probably 26, 27, like 14, 15 years ago, I've been on this kind of health journey now, where I've been trying to figure out how to live as healthy as possibly mentally and physically, with exercise and diet, really.
Yeah. Wow. I think you and I have that in common. My parents went through quite a difficult breakup when I was in high school and I played basketball. And so when you're a kid and your whole pillar is based on family and sports, and one of those pillars just dissipates, it kind of leaves you like, holy shit. And so I put all of my energy into sports, and I became so obsessed in basketball that I burnt myself out when I was done with college. And so I also went on medication, but I didn't have running yet. I didn't have an outsource of how can I take this into my own account. It was, holy crap, I'm a shell of a human and I need to be able to just get up and move the next day. Like, that was where I was. But I think there's such a beauty now that you have, myself included, running as a tool and eating healthy and being mindful as a way to holistically and naturally course correct your life. And thank you for sharing that. I know there's beauty to the background of the details of who you are today. And so that's super.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think as well, like what I've learned over the years is I used to be very kind of like, I don't want to share any of that because I feel a little bit vulnerable. But I think being vulnerable, especially as a man, because generally, like, as I mentioned before we came on, where I come from, it's a little bit of a tough sort of very working class, very kind of gritty northern English town where we sort of deal with our problems by drinking them away on the weekend. You know, that's kind of like how we drink. That's how we deal with problems. We don't really talk to each other, and especially sort of like the men don't talk to each other about how are you feeling. Like, really, how are you feeling? Like, that's not really a thing that we do. So I've got that kind of battle with me. But then when I've opened up and I've from that point of view, I've actually realised that more men actually come to you and more open up to you and say, "Well, do you know, that's, do you know, the way that you said this and what you said there," and just the people that have come up to me in the past through me opening up at some of the talks that I've done as well. It's just been quite eye opening, really, and it's been quite almost cathartic for me as well, like a way of healing or helping somebody else through my own stuff that I've gone through.
Yeah, definitely. So I have one of these questions, and I feel like it's gonna. You sort of answered it in the question before, but what does running mean to you?
Well, I was thinking about this question before we come on air, and for me, it's like running is one of those. It's like a practice that can be mastered over time. Really, it's like the opportunities to sort of test your boundaries. You know, you can connect to yourself. You can connect to the environment where you are. Hopefully, I do tend to get out into the trails a lot, so I can connect with nature a lot. I do run on roads, but not as much because I find road running quite overstimulating and a bit just kind of like a bit unnatural, a bit like. So I like to get out on trails, and like I said, that's like a process of sort of embracing the outdoors, embracing nature. You know, it's like the rhythm of each step is sort of like you're in rhythm. Every single run when you run on the trails is you can go and do the same 10K loop, but it'll be different every single time because the fauna or the flowers will be different. You know, the weather will be different. The trail will be different based on the weather. You know, sometimes it'll be more muddy. It'll be a bit more slippery. You've got to be a bit more switched on. Each footstep feels different. You know, it nourishes and stimulates your body in a slightly different way. There's that fine tuning element of you've got to be switched on to that because again, if you're sort of just zoning out, every now and then you'll kick a root of a tree branch or you'll kick a stone and it'll bring you back into the present moment. So there's that real sort of like present moment awareness that I love with running, especially running on trails. And it's what motivates me to sort of like that improvement. You know, I can refine it. I can feel my body in nature. I can sort of, yeah. I think it's very humbling as well. Like it's sort of like one of those practices that, or I see running as a practice. I don't really see it as a sport. I see it more as a practice. There's a reminder always that there's either somebody better than you somewhere, somebody can run faster than you, somebody's stronger than you, or maybe nature shows you that it's stronger than you because of the weather, or as I mentioned, the tree root that might trip you up. So it's beyond the sort of technical side. I suppose that it's almost like a moving meditation.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
it's very
that's perfect. Yeah.
very poetic. It's I'd say that it's become like a lifelong sort of practice to try and again almost like a carpenter that would really work with his tools. You know, it's very poetic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned rhythm, and so I like went back to, the musician and the art side that you talked to me about
Mm,
before. But that is very similar to, I think, a lot of listeners as well, because I think you can come into it can start as a sport and then it starts to grow into something more. It starts as, I need to move my body so I can stay fit, or I need to do this because I should do this, or this is what my friends are doing. I'm going to go out for a run. And then I think the more you run, and maybe it's, you running by yourself for the first time,
mm,
or you notice the differences of who you become as a human, the rhythm of the step, the ability to kind of step away from your computer, the so I think you spoke about it so beautifully. It's
mm.
moving meditation. Yeah.
Absolutely, and that's why I'm slightly different to sort of the running coach that will help. I do have clients that have got set goals, say to run a sub 90-minute half marathon, you know, things like this. But then along that process, it's almost again like I'm trying to educate them of like, will connect to your body. What are you feeling at the moment? You know, what you're feeling so your knees, you're telling me that your knees are aching. So what about your running form? Is it that can you feel the impact of it? Are you a bit more heavy on your left knee? Can you feel that? Maybe there's a bit more impact. And it's again, I'm sort of trying to come at it from that more kind of feeling and connecting sort of like the nervous system. We don't really tune into it enough. And the
Mm.
nervous system is this vast network of this communication system that we sort of dumb down in the Western world, where we don't really tune into it enough. And when we reduce our running to just a time, I think it just takes away all the beauty of it. And it's just like just these numbers on a screen. When you see someone on an Instagram, they've got the marathon time and they've got their half marathon time, I just think, yeah, but it's more than that. It's like, how did it feel doing that? What did it feel like when you achieve that? And what does that medal feel like when you look at it? All the emotions and all the things that come around that and all the feeling around that. So like, yeah, I suppose I come at, again, maybe that's because I'm a songwriter as well. So maybe I'm a little bit more poetic and romantic about things. So yeah.
No, I think that's good. I love, and that's why I love the different dimensions of what running can do for different people. For some people, it's a time, it's a metric to hold themselves accountable, and they're so focused on that. And that's what's important to them in that moment. For others, it's a space to be carve out a time in their day where they can step away from their computer and maybe just get some alone time and move through nature. Maybe it's where you're just kind of coming back and like coming back to yourself and trying to figure out, hey, I wasn't healthy this year, but this is a tool that can make me on the right path. It's so different for each person. And so I think for you, you do talk about it. You can see it in your face. Like you light up when you think about it because it is such a beautiful thing for you.
Sorry, that's what I was just about to say. I always try and do in my pre-run videos, if you've ever watched one of my pre-run videos where we're warming up, a lot of the times I will try and remember and ask people what is their purpose for running. What is your purpose for running today? So is it part of your weight loss journey, or maybe it's part of you just breaking your work day up and getting out for a run, or maybe you're part of this one run is part of your training, your whole training block, and it's just one small part of that. So again, noticing the process of each run, how that fits into the long-term goal, and just being in that, again, it's that very sort of mindful sort of being in that purpose of each and every run, rather than just ticking boxes and just done that one.
Mm-hmm. And after in your post run videos as well, like you also kind of encourage people to take a moment and to feel, you conclude it as well. That was where I was like, oh wow, this is bliss. Because you forget about it. You finish your run, okay, go about your day. But you remind people that are doing your videos, like, reflect on what you just did. So
yeah, absolutely. And again, that's it's a key element of how we again can connect to ourselves and make adaptations and sort of just be a bit more in tune with yourself. So don't, because we do have a tendency to be so busy, and there's very sort of meritocracy of like the busiest people are the most successful, which is not true. My grandma always used to say to me, you can quite easily become a busy fool. You can just be running around like a headless chicken. Don't be a busy fool. Don't make yourself busy just for the sake of being busy. And that sort of always stuck with me, is trying to find that right amount of balance. So then reflecting on your run, did you push yourself too hard in that? Did you go a bit too easy? Or did you go, was the work stress maybe pushing yourself too hard? Did you go a bit aggressive? Or could you tweak something? Maybe you didn't run at the right time. Maybe you didn't fuel your body properly. So again, just trying to reflect, because the more we can listen to ourselves and not listen to the external noise, that's what I've learned. I think it's really valuable to sort of trust yourself. And that's something that I've massively struggled with over the years. And I've recently just sort of like in the last year finished a period of cognitive behavioural therapy with a therapist. And when she asked me the question, do you trust yourself? That was like, really, like, do you trust yourself? And I was like, I've never thought about that in my life, but I don't think I could answer the question that I did at the time. And then it was almost like I didn't have self-belief and self-trust, and self-trust is a slightly different thing to self-belief. And I was like, I need to start getting to this point where I can start trusting myself again, and trusting my own judgments and trusting,
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know that I trust myself either. I trust that if I make a choice, I can learn from it, and like in that regard. But I don't know if I can sit here and be like, of all the things at 29 years old, I trust that at the end of my life, when I'm 90 in my deathbed, that I've lived you know what I mean? Like, so that's very philosophical. Holy moly. So at what point at this, you've refound your love for movement, for nutrition, for taking care of yourself, for running, were you like, I'm going to make this into a career? What was that kind of light bulb moment? Or maybe it wasn't, maybe it was just organic.
Yes, it was kind of, as I mentioned, it was that period of going through the kind of rock star years that I had, and then coming out of that, and I went back into like a management role, working for a vintage clothing company, and then I left there and I went to work for a local rugby league club. You've probably never really heard of the sport rugby league. It's like rugby union, but it's played in the north of England and in Australia.
Okay.
And I worked for the professional club, my local professional club, and I was sat in an office, and I found myself on every sort of spare moment I got, I'd be watching YouTube videos of runners or boxers or athletes training. And I was obviously trained a lot outside of work myself. I trained myself a lot. And I was just completely mesmerised by their dedication and the process that they went through to help themselves and improve themselves. Some of the sessions that they've put themselves through. And I've also got this sort of like, not obsession, but just like the interest in the sort of military mindset as well, how disciplined somebody can be. It just fascinates me how like the athletes and the people in the military can push themselves so hard and be so disciplined. And then it was kind of like I was watching these videos and I was sat in the office 8-9 hours a day. I cannot wait to get out of the office to go train myself. And I was like, I'm sat there here daydreaming about having that career and I was watching the coaches and the trainers that would train these athletes, and I'm thinking, this is something that I would love to do. I want to be that person there, and I started to pick up these trainers' names, and I'd follow them on social media, and I'd watch their techniques, and I'd watch the way that they spoke and the psychology that they use with their athletes. And I'm a little bit of an obsessive sometimes. I can get a bit obsessive, and I thought I need to do something. So I decided to retrain. Basically, I was working full time in this job, and I had some life savings, and I spent over the period of probably about 4 or 5 years, I spent about £12,500 of my own money on my 12 health and fitness qualifications.
Yeah.
Yes, I invested in myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So you were in this, and I feel like I have a little bit of a shortcut because I work remotely. That's kind of my thing is I refuse to sit at a cubicle. That is my, like, of all the list of things when I was looking for a job, cubicle better not be in there. If it says cubicle, I'm out. But so you're in this office space, you recognize like, this is not it. I'm focusing so much on these other athletes, these trainers, these coaches, what they're doing, what they're saying. Was that transition from your corporate role to then slowly getting your certifications and then you left your corporate job, or did you have like a nice cut break?
Yeah, so I did my certificates and my qualifications. I did them online as I was working full time. So I was working full time in this office job, and I was educating myself. I would be on an evenings online doing the online courses, and then going off on a weekend to the like the accreditation, sort of like the where you get forget the word, but where you get tested basically, and you get you're good, you're good, you can be a personal trainer, doing all the exams and things like that.
Yeah.
So I'll do that on weekends, and it was a case of I want to spend as much of my available resources as I could, getting myself as knowledgeable as I could, because I felt like an imposter. I felt like going from this office environment, and I looked at the personal trainers then at gyms where I was going to and things, and I thought, what if they find me out? These people, I don't want, and I just had this real imposter syndrome. So I wanted to I overcompensated by getting as many qualifications as I could, so I could give myself as much knowledge, almost like a bookworm, just soak up as much knowledge as I could to give me the confidence. And again, maybe that goes back into sort of that self-trust, where I probably didn't trust that I had the confidence in myself at the time. So I needed the confidence by buying as much information and getting it as much as possible, and giving me the confidence.
You mentioned the word imposter syndrome, and I at times suffer from this, and I've heard that like it's basically when you start in some place new, right? Like for example, if I were to go to the gym, having the athletic background that I have no imposter syndrome. I feel like I belong. I feel like I fit in the podcast world. Like I've been doing this for a year and a half. There's still that imposter syndrome. Like I am worthy of talking to someone of your credentials.
Yeah.
So I also have been like I have to sit there and navigate, that feeling because it's just what happens when you start something new. You
Yeah.
have to believe higher than you've achieved. And so that belief has to carry you. So that self-trust, yeah, you were spot on with that. That
Yeah.
was full circle.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, absolutely. I think that imposter syndrome. I think what we don't realize and what we don't understand is that everybody feels that. And I remember one of my bosses used to say to me, he used to say, what you don't realize is that everybody's winging it, but the people that are successful are winging it better than the others. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody's. Do you have that term, winging it, in America?
Oh yeah, we
Yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah. So
Oh
this is
yeah.
where they're just making stuff up. They don't really know themselves, but they just have a little bit more confidence in what they're doing. And actually, they're just sort of like, is this the right thing? Yeah, just go with it and believe it. And they're just doing it better than other people. So it's like we're all just making it up. There's no rule book, is there, to life?
Yeah.
And I think that imposter syndrome, we all have it at varying degrees, I would say.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of fear sometimes in growth and
Mm,
changing and transition.
mm,
And my mom would always say, like, you have to fake it till you make it. You're not going to ever have all the answers. So you fake it till you make it, and then you make it. And I was like,
yeah,
oh, okay.
yeah,
So yeah, the term winging it, we have that here too. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm just going to wing it. So which certification did you acquire first?
So in the UK, you've got to sort of have prerequisites.
Oh,
So you've
okay.
got to have like so you have to have your level 2 fitness instructor first before you can
Okay.
do the other level 3 and the level 4 and then the level 5. So I had to start with the level 2 fitness instructor, which basically is just I was allowed to go into gyms. I was allowed to show people exercises, but I
Mm,
wasn't allowed to sort of put programs together, and I wasn't sort of allowed to train them one to one. So then that was the first sort of step, and then it was just all the other ones on top of that, and like the things like the medical conditions and the obesity and diabetes. That was again because I wanted to feel confident that if somebody came to me that had some form of like osteoarthritis or some kind of issue like that or COPD, that I had the confidence to work with them. And again,
mm-hmm.
like the diabetes, just understanding somebody that suffers from type 1 diabetes or type 2 diabetes, just how their body would respond to exercise. Again, just to sort of give me the confidence, because I always had this fear that we don't have the same sort of culture as America. I know that you guys have, like, you can get sued quite easily for things. You know, if you don't, we don't have it, not as much as in the UK. But I did always have this fear of like, if I sort of injure somebody, like
Mm,
I don't want to ever get sued, and maybe lose my job.
I
So I always
see.
had this fear of like trying again get as much information from as much of the populace as possible to sort of help them. But then that's given me a really good understanding of the human body.
I bet. Because I feel like I
Mm,
almost picture, and I'm not sure how accurate this is, but starting with the level two, and then you talked about the weight management, mindful. Like did you start here and then just kind of grow based on what you found your passions into? Because like the mindful aspect, do you have to have that in order to be a
no,
right? See?
no. So that was sort of like my sort of like my professional side. So I was going up the professional element of that, going through those qualifications like level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, and all the different level 3s and different level 4s. That was sort of like there, and then there was sort of like my life that was going alongside that as well. So there was sort of
Ah,
like, as my life sort of picked up these different influences, I picked up yoga, I picked up mindfulness, meditation, and then there's the sort of intertwined in points. So
yeah.
throughout my sort of career progression, my life progression sort of intertwined at points that then influenced my career influenced my life sort of. The big really sort of realization was when I started to get into yoga, and it was YouTube again. So I was Yoga with Adrian was probably the first.
Oh, love yoga with Adrian.
Yes,
Yeah,
I mean,
she's great.
everybody's done a yoga with Adrian video, surely. And again, at the time, probably 15 years ago, there was no yoga for men or anything like that in our city. Again, it was very sort of, again, like I say, kind of gritty northern town and I didn't even really tell my friends that I did yoga for a good few years. And then I sort of progressed into going into classes, and then I got the mindfulness app Headspace. Have you heard of that? So
Yes.
Headspace, and then I just started doing meditation again, probably 15 years ago. And then that was like, whoa, this opened up this world of like, you can change how you feel mentally just by changing your breathing, or
Hmm.
you can stretch and move your body and put your body into these positions, and actually it releases tension and this heaviness and this kind of like stuck stiffness from your body. I was like, whoa, it just opened up a whole new realm, really.
Yeah. Do
Yeah.
you think, because you mentioned you started doing meditation and maybe yoga 14, 15 years ago, for men, as a woman, I don't have the insight, but do you see it like there's been more opportunities for men to see that other men practice meditation and yoga now versus 15 years, 14 years ago?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything online. So I remember when I used to do yoga online, it was, well, there's two people. It was Tara Stiles. I don't know if you know Tara Stiles.
I don't think so.
No, so she's a big
I'll
yoga
Google.
teacher, and yoga with Adrian. There was no men,
Mm,
so if you type yoga for men now, it'll probably be a 50-50 split, or there'll probably be more men that come up on your algorithm, depending. So there is huge, huge difference in how it was back then, 15 years ago, compared to now. And I think it's a lot more acceptable for men to talk about yoga and meditation.
mhm.
100%. Yeah, um, definitely.
Yeah, and you also talk about on your channel as well. You are a man who practices yoga. You talk about kind of being more reflective. You do offer that space, that
Mm.
like reflection space. Can you take me back to how you're feeling? Can you talk to me about? So you are also making the difference as well. So.
Yeah, thanks. And what I do tend to do as well in my videos is, you might notice that I tend to use the word yoga hardly ever,
Mm,
because yoga has it's yoga feels very loaded for I feel for men. Again, this is my opinion. I feel for men. I feel like yoga has this very sort of misconception of it all being, again, hippies with joss sticks lit and all sat around in a room humming, chanting.
yeah.
I feel like that's what men still sort of might have, that mindset of some. I'm not, again, I'm generalizing, and it's my opinion. It's more, but and I feel like as soon as use the word yoga, it can scare some people off.
Mm,
And there are different levels of yoga within yoga. There are different levels of some practice. Some teachers practice more of like the Hindu elements, the more spiritual elements, the chakra systems, and things like that. Whereas there are more on the other end of that, there are yoga teachers that just practice the more functional elements, where it's literally just this stretch will help this function.
yeah.
It help your body function better. So there's more functional movement yoga aspects, and then there's all the other side, all the way over to the more religious sort of practice of yoga.
I see. That makes sense. That does
Mm.
make a lot of sense. So, a couple questions I have for you, and these are, questions for the runners listening, and it's more kind of running logistics. So, I'm going to go into those if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, starting with your kind of coaching philosophy, because I did a deep dive on your YouTube channel, on your website, and you have written in several places that your coaching philosophy is very holistic and individualized. So I think we probably talked about this a little bit, but can you talk me through the holistic aspect of that you bring when you have someone that you're coaching?
Yeah. So again, as I mentioned, it's not just focusing on whether you're hitting that goal for that run, or whether your body is able to produce that. It's how's your stress levels at the moment? How are your stress levels affecting? I'm having a conversation with, again, not going into too much detail or naming people, but hormonally, like maybe are you starting with the menopause? Is these little signs of starting to come in with the menopause. I'm noticing lightheadedness. All these little sort of other realms that's not just like you're hitting this one goal. It's having a look at everything. Your stress levels, your sleep, how you're sleeping. Are you meditating? Are you doing any breath work? Are you getting your strength working? Are you getting your flexibility work? So it's having a look at everything in terms of like holistic means sort of like the overview of everything again, not just sort of focusing on how well your running's going. Just that
Yeah.
one thing. And I had a client a few months back who came to me in person, and he was struggling with his knees. And usually, what happens with knee pain is that heavy heel striking, and I knew that straight away he was going to be a heel striker, which he was. But I asked him to run around this local field, and I said, I don't want. So the things that we've just put in place, we put some things into place, and it changed the way he ran based on his idea again in his head. And I said, right, what I want you to do is I want you to think about work, and I want you to run around the field thinking about work. And he ran around the field, and his knees were hurting. And I said, so do you know what? Do you know the difference between what we've literally just done and what you've done there is your brain's too focusing on it's focusing on what's going on at work. You're stressed. You've gone back to a really heavy, ploddy. His posture changed. His posture went like this because he was so stressed with his work. His posture completely changed. He was heavier. His cadence, was slower, so it was a lot more impact. And I said, right, so now what we're going to do is focus on the things that we've just done, focusing on the count. And it's literally, so again, rhythmical, like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, just counting that over and over at this certain rhythm. And again, it just changed. So he went into a really natural kind of foot strike, and he ran round and said, no foot pain, no knee pain. And it's just, again, looking at those, how literally what is going on in your mind, thinking, and the thoughts that you're engaging with can change your experience of running. Just a thought like that. So again, it's the kind of taking that sort of holistic view of like what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Can we dig a little bit deeper?
Yeah, I think as someone who's been running, and it's so great you bring this up because I think it's unfair to judge your running performance if that's something you're measuring rather than just turning your brain off or, the mental aspect. I think it's unfair to hold yourself to mental performance. You have all these other external factors going on that you're not being considerate of. Is your sleep crap? Are you eating not great foods?
Yep.
For me, where I have to kind of keep in check is my work. My muggle job, not this job, can be really stressful at times. And so one of my things is I need to make sure my brain is okay. If my brain is okay, like my mind, how I think, how I process, it stops. I can keep my work in this bubble. If my brain is not okay, it will infiltrate, if that's the right word. It will fill and spill over into other parts of my life. And so I've been on runs where I've noticed if I'm thinking about work, I will actually run angrier and I will run faster because I'm pissed. And so it's like it takes the joy out of running. It's like I have to bring myself back. Like, look at the trees. I luckily live in LA where I'm like, look at the beach, look at look at other things, look at people. And so that's so amazing you bring that up because it is truly the external factors do affect your running performance if that's something you're focusing on.
Yeah, and absolutely, and also on what sometimes happens as well, if like you say about if your brain's really tired and it's really stressed and you've had a really really hectic day at work, you might be less motivated to go out for a run, because again you've not got the mental energy to get yourself out there. Be like, I just want to go home. I just want to sit on the couch and do nothing. So again, the actual motivation will be harder to sort of drum up and get yourself out there. And also your perception of effort will be, you will perceive that it's hard, that the run is harder than it actually is because you're mentally fatigued. So again, it's looking at how all that interplay it works with each other, and it's really interesting. You've got to be aware of those. And that's why like mantras are really good for bringing you into the present moment. So I have lots of mantras. I deliberately go out and run hills because I believe that they keep me mentally sharp. They challenge me, and I don't like them. Nobody loves running hills really, but I do. It's like a love-hate relationship. But as soon as I get to a big hill I've planned, I start telling myself I love hills. So in my brain, I'll be coming up to this hill, and I'll be preparing myself saying I love hills. I love hills with the rhythm that I'm running in. I love hills, and I'll smile because a smile changes what's going on in your brain. So I'm priming myself that actually I love hills, and I'm going to embrace this. And then there's a sportsman in the UK who's died recently called Rob Burrow, and he had motor neurons disease, and he went from being this elite athlete that's won lots of titles in the rugby league to being within 4 years he's died of motor neurons disease, and obviously he was wheelchair bound. So I also as well, if I notice negativity in my run or my hill or whatever it is, I will start to flip that and change it to positivity, and I'll say, I'm here, I'm able-bodied, I'm running, I've chosen to do this. I'm actually really grateful for the pain that I might be feeling, or the exhaustion that I'm feeling, because I can do this. It's an amazing thing that I'm out here doing this, and push myself, and I'm able to push myself because I think of Rob Burrow, and I think Rob Burrow would have loved to have been here doing this right now at this moment in time, and it's reminding yourself of again, just little things like that, and just flipping the negativity, switching it into a positive is a really, really big tool to use.
Yeah, I agree with you there. For folks who get into running just on the baseline of trying to lose weight, I've always found this interesting, the dynamic between running to lose weight and then how that can bleed into running longer distances. And so a lot of people, they're focused on their calorie intake and they'll run under-fueled, which then is more prone to injuries, right? If you're not giving your body the fuel it needs to recover, to replenish, to actually function, that's when you become weaker. In your experience, have you seen is there a balance of the two?
That is a really tricky one, and that's why I tend to, not that I don't advertise for weight loss clients, but I don't really encourage. I don't encourage on any of my social media that I work with weight loss clients, or that's the main thing that I will help people with, because it's got to be your running journey and your health journey has got to be long. For me, it's long term, And if I've had clients that have, throughout my 10 years as a 10, 12 years as a trainer, that are weight loss, and all they do is they just go from one thing to the next. They do phases. And it's yo-yoing between one thing to the next. So again, what I always try and do is if somebody's a client's focus is weight loss, I will get them to just change little habits. So again, like you went out on a run today, that's a really positive thing. Well done. It doesn't matter that you might not have lost any pounds this week. You're starting to build really good habits, and long term, if you create more good habits than you've got bad habits, you will get to a place where you want to go. And I think it's about trying to create as many little wins as you can throughout a day and throughout the week. So maybe you was a little bit more active than yesterday. You didn't sit and watch the TV for as long. You wasn't on your phone for as long. Just all of these little things, all of these little movement snacks and things that you can get that just start to create a healthier you. And then when you start to feel better about yourself, you'll then sort of question what you might put into your body a little bit more. And it's all sort of like a more, again, maybe a holistic, right or wrong word, but more kind of like a more holistic approach, I would say.
Yeah.
Than just focusing just like let's get your calories down and let's get into a deficit, and so it's again just little tweaks. So maybe again in your diet, what can we tweak that's not going to have a massive impact, it's not going to be such a big change, but will have a little bit of an impact over a period of time, and then you get to a point where actually you're okay with that, and you can start to make a few more little tweaks. So I'll just change out that, and I'll just change out this, and then before you realize it, over a period of 6 months, where you was to where you are now is like it's a totally different place.
Yeah. what you mentioned is so valid. It's like brick by brick. You don't build a house in one go. It's brick by brick by brick. You have to have that foundation, and then it does encourage, right? When you eat really good, and healthy, you feel good. You want to stay that way. You don't. No one likes to feel like shit. I also think too, like being honest with like the runners yourself, because I started just running purely because of COVID. Like I started like just for fun to keep my body moving a couple of years before, like would go on every run like once a month, 2 times a month, and then I got into running just to keep myself in shape because of COVID. Everything was locked down. And I kind of got myself into a little sticky situation because I was counting every single calorie I was eating, like every calorie, and then the calories I would burn.
Mm.
And then I would go on these long runs, like these 18-mile long runs, and like tell myself I didn't need gels, I didn't need shoes. And so I'm just depleting my body. And I felt like crap. And I just felt super weak. And it wasn't until I understood that, okay, this isn't more about weight loss anymore. This is purely like, I want to be the best version of myself. And that requires me to eat. Right. So I always find that the balance between the two can be super tricky because there is a definitive goal of losing weight versus endurance training
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So my question for you is, can you share 3 concepts, practices to help boost recovery? So like if someone hasn't prioritized recovery or they're not taking it seriously, and what are the 3 things you're like, hey, these are 3 things you can include in your life that's going to make it a little better for you?
Post-run stretch, absolutely. Dynamic stretch. So, as you know from me, I'm a dynamic stretching person. There's lots of studies around PNF stretching that it's really beneficial, but I also find it very soothing. So this sort of and again, this is where sort of like a lot of the science is very reductionist around stretching and static stretching. It's kind of just focuses on did it help DOMs? Do you know, did it help your DOMs? And it's very reductionist again. It's not looking at like actually did it reduce your stress level? You know, did your stress level come? Did your heart rate come down? You know, did you feel better? You know, so again, there's a whole kind of very reductionist science fact that says that stretching does or doesn't work or whatever. But I think dynamic stretching it feels good and it's working muscles and tissue tendons. If you're putting them into different positions, you're increasing your range of motion over a period of time. Your body's going to function better. So dynamic stretching is absolutely essential. And then fuel. Like, so it's again, if you look at the evidence, you need to be getting protein, and if you're an endurance athlete, carbohydrates back into your system to replenish your glycogen stores and repair your muscles. So ideally, you want protein and carbohydrates within an hour of your run, so especially if you've done a long run. Obviously, you need to know how much you need, so how much have you burned roughly, and how much you need, because if you sort of weight loss, if your idea is weight loss, you don't want to be consuming too much. So definitely dynamic stretching, and then make sure you fuel properly. And then I'd probably say I do like cold therapy, so a cold shower. So I do cold shower every single day, and cold showering after a run feels really refreshing. You know, you can feel that sense of relief in the muscles. The muscles, like, it just feels like the body likes it. So yeah, I'd say dynamic stretching. Make sure you get your post run fueling right, and cold therapy, which again I think it's very popular in the cold therapy.
Yeah, you see a lot of the I noticed a major amount of like inflammation reduction, excuse me, especially in my Achilles and my body when I would do like the cold plunging, which is a bit, not necessarily a cold shower, but like, freezing temperatures. And it just like is a shock to the system. It's almost like a reset button.
Yeah.
Okay. And for those who don't know what dynamic stretching is, that active stretching?
Yeah, so it's movement. So in static stretching, you just stay in a position for a period of time. So you just stay there. And I feel like that sometimes can be quite brutal and harsh to the body. You know, we are a living organism. Our heart beats, our brain waves are moving. You know, there's a lot of pulses in our body, a lot of constant little shifts. And you know, we're made of water, almost 70% of water. So trying to get water to stay still in the same place is very hard. So I think static feels quite brutal and harsh, whereas I feel just going into very similar positions that we would hold static stretches in, but just a little gentle dynamic rock. And just a slight shift of certain positions. So again, like if you're familiar with my videos, I might say just put this, or put your hip, drop your hip here, or whatever, just to try and get a little bit more out of it, and yet just gently sort of massage it in a really sort of soothing way.
Okay. If you're going to be a successful long-term runner, you can't just run. There has to be something else in your pocketbook that you're doing. What do you recommend for a runner wanting to add more to their regimen? What do you recommend, like, in regards to cross training?
I'd say you absolutely essential that you strength train at least twice a week. So whether that be body weight or whether it be dumbbells or whether it be barbells, you need to do some form of strength training to create capacity in your muscles. As simple as that. The greater capacity that you have in the muscles, the more forces they can take and generate. So it's as simple as that. If you going straight into running, which most runners do, and just start running and just all they do is running, you're gonna improve your muscle capacity and your muscle strength, but you're gonna hit a sort of plateau and a point where you can only do so much. So you need to strength train. And definitely single leg training is very important to make sure that we're not imbalancing ourselves, because we do all unfortunately have imbalances. So training your left and right separate, and then so strength training, and then I would absolutely suggest again making sure that you're warming up properly, making sure that you're priming your body, you're priming your heart and your lungs and your joints and your cartilage, your muscle tendons ready for your run, and then making sure you've got some form of daily stretching practice if you can, even 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah,
that makes sense. I'm someone who stacks my calendar, and I'm sure there are other people that stack their calendar. So let's say, for example, a 6-mile run. Should I be doing 10-minute stretch, like 10-minute dynamic stretching prior my run, and then 10-minute after, and then followed by that prioritized fuel? Like, is that kind of the formula you would recommend?
Absolutely. If you could do a 10-minute pre-run warm up, followed by your 6-mile run, followed by your 10-minute cool down dynamic stretch, that would be fantastic. And then within that hour from finishing your run to getting your fuel in, that would be absolutely essential within the hour. That would be the ideal, perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely, if you could do it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard the quote that, or I've heard other runners that are friends of mine say, like, the amount of time you're running is the amount of time you should be stretching. And I find that, like, that's very insightful, but I'm not sure who has the time. If you're going out for an 18-mile long run, who's going to be stretching for 2 hours? Do you find that realistic? Is that a nice goal to have?
It's okay if you're David Goggins. He's meant to do that 2 to 3 hours a day. And it's okay if you're him, but no, most of us live busy lives, as we've said. I've got 2 children as well as my own business, and that's not realistic at all. So I think again, like every time you stretch, I like to say that you are reshaping your body, because if you put your body into a position, you're asking your nervous system, your muscles, and your tendon tissues and your joints to go into that position. If you do that repeatedly, your body's going to open up like a flower in spring. If you can do little and often, that's going to be as beneficial for you. Not as beneficial if you're doing 2 hours a day every day, then obviously you're going to be a flexible, bendy person. Yeah. But if you can do little and often, if you can do 10 minutes a day over a period of time, you will start to see changes in your body and in the way that your body functions, and you will feel better within your body for that.
From your perspective, what do you think the highest, out of just a pool of runners, what is the most injury? What is the highest, what's the way to say this? What is the most common injury out of those pool of runners?
There's probably 2. I would say calf strain and runner's knee.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, okay. And is runner's knee from that heel strike that you talked about?
Yeah, so runner's knee, again, it's comes down to footwear, because and in the heel we don't have any nerve endings in the heel, so we don't feel it. And with our cushion trainers as well, we're encouraged to, especially if you've got a heel rocker, we're encouraged to heel strike. And that's how we would walk. We would heel strike when we walk, but not when we run. It's not optimal, really. So you'd ideally want to be landing on the midfoot, so where the balls of the feet are, and then a slight heel kiss, and then it comes off. So yeah, heel striking is very common. I think it's something like about 80-85% of people are heel strikers, and I think the stats are again around about 80-85% of runners every single year get injured. So there seems to be quite a correlation between that. And it's just because you're effectively like running with your handbrake on your car. If you imagine that, it's like you're running with with brakes on. It's like a blunt heel force every single time you run. So if you can change your running form, it's hugely beneficial to your body. And then also like the calf strain and shin splints work together really, because very common. They're very common overuse injuries. So people just do too much too quickly, too much too soon. Their shins and their calf muscles, there's quite small muscles. Calf muscles are a bit bigger, but the shins are really thin strip, and they just get overworked. And basically, they're not strong enough to cope with all of the weight that you're now suddenly putting through them. So those are I would say, 2 or 3 most common running injuries.
Yeah. And so for the heel strike, the runner's knee is usually from heel strike. To remedy that, is it just kind of working with a running coach to fix your stride and figure out what that just like more customized running?
Generally, the thing that fixes it is cadence. So changing your cadence, generally what you see is runners will have a lower cadence in the sort of like the 160 steps per minute. So there'll be sort of like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it'll be quite it'll look quite like bounding. Whereas you need to be the optimal rhythm, and again, it's been proven by science. They've done a lot of evidence on it. It's 180 steps per minute, and that gives it so you can just practice drills of just literally just jogging on the spot, and you can get a metronome and you can count that. And you can just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and it should feel light and springy and effortless. And then you just take that into your running. And it's very hard to heel strike when you're running at that cadence because your feet are moving so quickly, and you're just trying to keep that rhythm, that 8 count. So it's changing your cadence, and just counting in that rhythm is the main thing that's going to switch your heel striking. It takes time to practice, and what's going to happen as well, your calf muscles are going to feel it a lot more.
That was my next question. Yeah. Is it because you're changing your form? But I guess through. And I think that naturally happened for me once I started picking endurance. I wasn't ever a heel striker, but I realized I needed to have shorter, quick steps rather than these long. Because I'm 6'2". You're like, use your legs. Like you hear that all the time. Yeah. But you burn yourself if you're like, picture like a giraffe running. It's not it's not going to last very long.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a real fine line. So that's what happens when I first start working with runners, is that when you change the cadence, they start sprinting because they feel like they've got to move their feet faster. But actually, I can run 180 steps per minute, and I'm not moving anywhere right now. So I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm doing a 180 cadence there. So then all you have to do is you can just sort of lean forwards a little bit more, and you can take that cadence with you, but just so you don't have to sprint to get that 180 steps in. Yeah. So it's again, your stride length will naturally open up as you lean forwards from your chest.
Okay. Yeah. And then for our folks who have like the shin splints, how do they go about trying to course correct?
So reduce your volume of how much weekly volume you are running, and then doing some specific, which I've got a program at the moment. It's a free 28-day program on my YouTube channel of focusing on the 7 most common running related injuries.
Oh, so perfect.
Quite timely, and it's free. And then 10 to 15 minute sessions each day. And there's a shin splints / calf strain session each week. There's 4 weeks. We'll go through the 7 most common running related injuries, and we do strength and stretch exercises to prevent them.
Okay. So, I will link that into this bio as well. Yeah. That is what you call, we call that money over here.
Yeah, so
That's
it's a free 20-day program.
yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
a key. That's awesome. Okay, so I want to jump into rapid fire questions.
Yeah.
All right. What is your go-to post-run meal?
Porridge, oatmeal. You call it oatmeal in America, don't you? Oatmeal, porridge with blueberries and protein powder.
Oh,
Yeah,
are you doing frozen blueberries or fresh?
fresh. Yeah,
Okay.
a big bowl of that, and like, yeah.
Okay. So just the that's I haven't been able to get into oatmeal. It just upsets my tummy.
Oh
But
really?
it's also yeah.
Yeah,
But I've seen like that's like a great go-to. That like your piece of toast with butter. But like
yeah.
porridge.
That or chocolate spread on toast.
Oh, is the chocolate spread like Nutella?
No, because apparently it's not actually that good for you. So I've got
Oh, okay.
yeah, there's a European company that do a more healthier version.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Okay, what has been your favorite race so far?
So a couple of years ago, I did a half marathon up Mount Snowdon in Wales. Have you heard of
Mm.
that mountain?
I when I was doing a bit of background on you, I did see that and I did look at it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, so it's just over three. I think it's about 3,500 feet, and it was stunning. It was stunning. So big challenge. The first 10K was 3,000 feet incline. So, and then there was at mile 11, there was what's called the vertical kilometer, which was an old slate mine, which was literally step after step for a kilometer. It was a kilometer up.
Oh
It
my
was, it was
god.
brutal. So it was that's my most memorable and yeah, favorite race I've done. Yeah.
Okay, what is your favorite book?
The Chimp Paradox by Dr. Steve Peters. So
I don't
that's
think I've ever heard of that.
so that's given me a lot of good use over the years. It's about how we've got the obviously the different voices. We've got the chimp voice in our brain. We've got the human, and he sort of makes the brain into this. So it really simplifies this model of the brain and how we have this chimp voice that's kind of and can just shout and be,
Mm,
and then we have the human, which is the frontal cortex, and then we have the computer where we put our stored beliefs and things, which is sort of like the back area, and it's really simplified the brain for me, and I really sort of related to it, and there's a lot of practical exercises in that. So the Chimp Paradox was a great book. Yeah.
I'm gonna look that up.
Mm.
I'm very much into the mind about how it like because if you strip everything away, business, money, family, everything, all that you're left with is your brain. That's where it
Mm-hmm.
really all starts. So
Yeah,
that's I'll give that a go.
yeah, it's a good one.
Definitely. Okay, what is one thing that you want listeners to know about you that you
Say
haven't
that
talked
again,
about?
sorry.
What is one thing that you want listeners to know about you? So if they didn't hear any of the other part of the episode, or they did, what is one thing they should know
Mm-hmm.
about you, Ash?
That I care about people, I would say. That I care about the success of people. And I think I care about creating, or just maybe sharing and creating a community of like, there's other people that might be suffering. And if I could help you, you know, get off the couch and improve your life, or maybe, again, maybe you're thinking about ending your life, if there's some kind of way, there's always somebody who cares out there. So I'd say that, yeah.
That's lovely. Thank you for saying that.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's good when there's people like you in the world.
Thank you.
It's lovely. Okay, what are 3 things that you're grateful for?
Family, 100%. That's got to be the core of everything, really. My wife, my children, and my extended family. My able-bodiedness, the fact that I can run and I can move, and nature. That would be 3. And I love being in nature. I think it's very healing, and I think we are a little bit too disconnected from it, and disconnected from actually the power of what it can do to us,
Mm-hmm.
or with us, or for us. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I feel like there's always if I'm ever having a shit day, there's my go-to is the beach. I think it's different for each
Mm,
person. So like with the fires in LA, where I always am drawn to is the ocean. I'm a water baby.
mm,
And so the kind of joke in the families is like, how many shells did you collect? Because people know like I've gone to the beach and that's where I usually kind of do my reset button. And so I'm with you there. I'm so thankful for the outdoors. And I know the love is different for each person, but yeah, couldn't be more true.
That reminds me of my eldest daughter. She loves collecting shells and rocks on the beach. She loves it.
Each one there's a background, there's a story there, like how it got to be its shape, why did that break happen here, what happened with this one, where's the piece that matches. I don't know, that there's just so much history to them. So
I get that.
Yeah. Well, that's the podcast.
Thank
That
you
was
very much.
awesome. Of course. I loved having you on. That was amazing.
It's been really enjoyable. Thank you very much. It's been really good. It's been really good to speak to you and really good to share me and who I am. And thank you for your great questions.
Of course.